Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaRevelis and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link down in the description to the page, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. My name is Joshua Revelis. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down with fellow enthusiasts to talk about what's going on in the technology, business, and gaming world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Revelis. I am your host as usual, and welcome to episode 40. Obviously, 10 episodes away from the big episode 50th special. Like I said, everything is going smoothly in preparation for that. Me and Ryan are currently in the process of getting the whole video lined up with the audio and everything, and the audio itself, not really much of an issue. I already have that ready to go, but as I stated before, today's episode 40. And you guys already voted on the poll, so we have two topics lined up for you this week. Obviously, very recent news topics in their own right. So today we're doing the episode over the AMD GPU thing. And this is very problematic in many regards, in my opinion. Especially with the launch of the whole AMD's new lineup of CPUs and GPUs. The fact that the GPUs are having this big of an issue is very concerning, especially when the CPUs are currently scaring Intel out of their pants. We'll talk about a little bit something about that in a future episode when we talk about the CPUs. But in regards to the GPUs, AMD recently released the Radeon RTX 5700 and then the 5700 XT. These two cards, obviously, they're meant to be affordable cards. When they were originally announced, they were priced at higher than the 260 Super and the 270 Super in their respective rights, because these things were meant to compete in those price ranges. But when AMD dropped, or NVIDIA actually dropped the 270 Super and the 260 Super, NVIDIA had a chance to actually lower the prices to make them more competitive. So they switched up how they're going to be, I'd say, presenting these cards. They ended up changing how they present them. And because of that, and I'm not going to be able to provide the same amount of detail as like somebody like Linus, who had one of his helpful assistants or people that work for him essentially, that have already done the test and everything and already can give you exact specifications and everything. Like, I'm going to put a link to the Linus video for people that are interested, because he's going to give you more details than anything I ever could, because he actually, like I said, tested the cards and he has them right in front of him. But this is still a big issue. Clearly, I don't think we can debate what's going on here. But let me actually provide context of what's going on. So, what ended up happening with the launch of the 5700 and the 5700 XT is obviously the cards are able to perform, high-end, high frame per second, 1440p very easily, able to get incredibly good frame rates on many popular games, especially more modern games and old games. But one of the biggest downsides with the cards that a lot of people are noticing is the fact that the temperatures are being a lot hotter than what normally is expected. And based on the Linus video, like I said, they actually clocked it, and it's actually running at 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And obviously, that's pretty hot. I think we're not going to debate that. Yeah, 95 degrees is pretty hot, especially for a card. And because of that, we are experiencing, well, not me because I don't have AMD card, but for people that actually bought them, which I actually have the thread right here of the AMD community of people talking about the GPU crashing when playing 3D games with the 5700 XT. This is a post from, let me see if I have his name correctly. Actually, I don't think he actually posted a name, but he posted a comment saying, "Hello, I have installed the 5700 XT graphics card yesterday and used DDU to clean my old drivers, then installed the latest driver 19.7.1. The motherboard is Asus ROG Strix X470F Gaming. BIOS version is 5007, which is the latest too. Normal use was fine, like watching videos, playing Steam games. But when I play games like Apex Legends for a while, my screen no longer refreshing. Yeah, he didn't really use proper grammar. Mouse cursor still working. Discord chatting still working. Cannot use Task Manager to open or close applications. The only way to reboot is pushing the restart button. This is 19.7.1 driver problem, or some of my hardware is not compatible. Anyone have the same problem? And you see a lot of responses. Let me provide one of the responses. This person actually has a name. His name is Pokester. Kind of funny, or an ironic. His response was the fact this is happening under prolonged use, likely at high percentage usage of the GPU, leads me to think that it is a thermal issues, which we've already discovered it is. According to a couple review sites, these things run hot and in some tests have shut down due to heat, as shown in the Linus video. I have seen in the reviews saying there are two believed causes. One is the blower cooler itself is not adequate, and many sites are recommending waiting for third-party boards, which I will discuss that as well. The other is believed driver issues that are causing overheating even in menus in games, which they even mentioned it. Anthony at Linus Tech Tips figured this out and said that AMD did replicate the problem after he reported it, and it would be fixed in an upcoming driver. Not known how soon that would be, but I bet not too long. Being a new card, I would not accept this and would either exchange or return or RMA it. But definitely talk to AMD about it. I would not let your opportunity pass for a return, in my honest opinion, as third-party boards and the drivers, by the time those come out, will be hopefully fix these issues. That being said, while I appreciate the tech advancement, a price point, this grammar is pretty bad. Not trying to be mean, but advancement of a price point of these new products, they also should not have these issues. So if AMD cannot make it right, wait for a soon upcoming product that does. That would be my suggestion. So if third-party card drivers work fine, can I use that for a reference card? So that kind of sums up exactly the whole situation. That I honestly gave my opinion off recording, really, with some of my friends when we talked about it. That, like I said, the two issues were clearly the blowers or the drivers. And with the blowers, yeah, I think this is very straightforward, really. In my opinion, I think the whole blower design, that it's only using one blower. Most graphics cards, traditionally, to run cool and run at a fair temperature, usually run 2 to 3. So the fact that it's running 1 is very concerning, because the blower just doesn't work. It's not adequate. Like, I would only recommend one fan if it's able to do what it needs to do, at a very effective fan. That's what it needs to do. You only use one fan if you're very confident that this fan can do what two fans do, but clearly this isn't what happened here. And I think a lot of people are clearly pissed, especially because this is a very new card that people have been hyping up. I wouldn't say as much as I would clearly nowhere near the CPUs, because it got AMD's clearly has Intel running right now. Intel does have some way to fire back right now that I will discuss later on. But the fact that AMD, I don't know. Like, obviously, yes, the CPU and the GPU divisions are different. They're not the same. Some people are like, wait, what? How are they not the same? It's the same company. Yes, it is, but they actually aren't the same divisions. Shocking, right? So, really, I think this either comes down to an issue of one hand not knowing what the other one's doing. Because, like I said, the CPUs are phenomenal, but the graphics cards, if they work, are great for the money. If they work. The whole thing with the driver issue does make sense as well. Like, that usually happens with newer cards, and this is also something that I've talked about with a downside to AMD cards specifically, was the whole driver update situation. Because the reason, and I'm going to give my honest opinion on this, The reason I use NVIDIA graphics cards preferably is because the driver update and software is just far better than AMD's. Like, I think AMD has improved, but it's nowhere near as good as NVIDIA's. Like, AMD CPUs, yeah, I'll take an AMD CPU over Intel. Like, I get more bang for the buck, and it actually performs better in many aspects. But when it comes to the GPUs, I'm always going to pick NVIDIA because, like I said, the driver updates are more consistent. They actually give you better features with the cards, like GeForce Experience. If you have an NVIDIA card, download GeForce Experience. It is arguably the best thing because that's how you update your drivers for your cards. That's how you get access to features like, say, streaming with your card, because you can actually stream directly with GeForce Experience because you have an NVIDIA card. It actually will work as a streaming device. And depending on your card, you can actually do 1080 60 for frames per second streams. And that's, like, if you guys watch my streams, like, yeah, I stream on Twitch. Not a shameless plug for my Twitch page, but I use that to stream my games when I play, and it works perfectly fine. Like, a lot of people saw, and the latency is actually pretty decent. It actually, well, not decent, it's actually pretty good. I'm only like, I believe it's only like 3 seconds off from when I'm actually talking. Like, it's actually like a little bit delayed, so it's actually pretty good. I like the streams, how they come out and everything. They look great. But that's the main reason why I prefer NVIDIA cards over AMD. And the fact that this whole hardware issue even happened is very alarming, because I get it. Like, my opinion is, if these cards would have been at their original price point, it would have been an even bigger issue, clearly. I'm not going to stand here and say people wouldn't be more pissed. Oh, they'd be hell of more pissed. Clearly they would. I don't think anybody realistically can argue that. No, people would be more pissed if these cards essentially were priced the way that they were originally, and then this started happening. People would be pissed. I think at least with the decrease in price and making them less than 300. Well, it's actually, I think the 5700 is $350, and then the XT is only $50 more, and then if you want the Founders Edition, it's only $50 more from there. But even then, people would still be really pissed. Clearly, they would. But I think at least with the reduction in price, it's not as bad, but clearly it's unacceptable. Like, you can't just have your computer crash just because it's in a menu. Like, in the Linus Tech Tip videos, they actually showed it actually crashed in the menu. So they were playing Rise of the Tomb Raider and it crashed in the menu. Like, not even 10 minutes in and it crashed. Like, boom, just crashed the whole computer. So clearly this is an issue. I do believe AMD is doing the best of their abilities to fix this stuff, but I think this is kind of a lesson, and I think this even supports the whole episode I did on AMD, which was over the idea of it being a little bit overhyped in some aspects. Because, like I said, for some reason its overhyped doesn't equal like sales. Like, obviously the CPUs are doing great, obviously, but they're not as potent as we originally thought. Like, they still compete very well in comparison to Intel, but there are obviously aspects where it still doesn't do as best as in theory it should. So it's still fantastic CPUs, and I would always recommend them more than the current Intel offering, which is why Intel's even lowering the price of the i9-99K to $450 at Micro Center, which is clearly a steal. They even lowered the i7 97K to, I think it's like $350. Yeah, they're like $350. So that's if you like Intel, that's a pretty good steal for a CPU, high-end CPU. But you get my point, is that we're running into this whole issue of it's not equaling. Like, there's something that's just not right, clearly. And I don't know, maybe this has always been a thing with AMD GPUs, that the CPUs will always perform well, they'll always generate hype and revenue, but the GPUs for some reason never seem to take off. Like, they just can't seem to get a break. Like, the Vega line and everything, yeah, like, if you also think about it too, in the GPU department, AMD doesn't really have a competitor to the 280 Ti, or even the 280 to begin with. They don't really have a good competitor. Well, the 280 Ti specifically, but there's not really a big competition for it. And this is kind of a big thing. I get it, like especially these cards like the 5700 and the XT version are not meant to compete with that card because that's a high-end card, and these are more of I wouldn't say entry-level cards because it sounds messed up, but at least more mid-range cards, at least if we put it in that category, because it runs games incredibly well, like 1080p to 1440 incredibly well. And obviously the 280 Ti is meant for like 4K gaming. Clearly that's what it, and heavy VR and things like that. Even CAD designing, which, yeah, like you can also get that, or you can get a Quadro, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. But you get my point. So this whole GPU issue, besides like the issues with the 5700Xs and 5700s, is kind of even a thing that just happens overall with AMD cards. Like you can Google search AMD GPU issues and you just get like a list of results from 2018, 2017. You get like all these big threads with like hundreds of responses, like going over issues with AMD GPUs. And I don't know what's really going on with this stuff. Like, I think personally, I just think AMD, like I've already said it, like AMD just can't get a break with the GPU division. I don't know what they'll end up doing. And this doesn't even, like I said, is the GPU division is going to get even more crazy, especially when you have Intel jumping into the GPU space, because Intel's going to start making their own GPUs. I don't know how that's going to work. But primarily everybody's going to always pick NVIDIA because it's always a better card. And yeah, for the money, I'd rather spend a little bit extra for the better security. Like with AMD GPU, with CPU specifically, like, yeah, like that's what Intel's known for in CPU division is raw power. But, you know, AMD caught up and gave them real competition. Now, obviously, Intel's going to fire back with something good, hopefully. But we'll see. So, but with the whole GPU debacle, with the whole thermal issues and everything, my advice would be to wait for third-party cards. Like, I think, I know I'm gonna sound like an NVIDIA supporter, or NVIDIA sheep. But NVIDIA's stock cards are actually really good. Like they do really good jobs with their actual cards. Like when they make them themselves, it's not a third party and they make them, they're great. A lot of people have them, and there's a reason why a lot of people like using them, because the thermals actually run really well. Obviously the Founders Editions are also very popular cards as well for people that like to stick out, and resale value is actually really good on the Founders Editions as well, because they're higher clocked versions of the normal versions of them. But yeah, NVIDIA cards always keep better resale value as long as you don't use liquid cooling, which we'll talk about that eventually. But I think in terms of the GPU issues with AMD, they really need to see what they're going to end up doing, because the fact that this even happened on a brand new card, like you had plenty of time to learn from the mistakes of the old cards, and they didn't learn. And now we're back here again. This is clearly an issue. AMD really needs to see what they end up doing. Like we said, is AMD's not really that consistent when it comes to driver updates. So we have to see what they end up doing. I presumably assume, because AMD did respond to Linus Tech Tips and they did provide a response and they were able to replicate the issue, I think it will be coming soon. Maybe end of July, maybe early August at best. That's best case scenario. But my advice would be, if you are in the market for these AMD cards, which I still think they're great for the money, if they work. When they work, they're phenomenal for the money, and I would personally recommend them. But I would wait for a third-party option. Like, everybody's been saying this, and I know I just sound like I'm repeating the same shtick. I would wait for the third-party card. Personally, I think we have to see what these third parties can do, like MSI, Gigabyte, Asus, see what they can do, eVega, see what they can really do, and how they can actually handle this situation. Like, how can they remake these cards? Because that's what they're known for. Like, all these third parties make the same card, but just, add their own flavor to it and make it, I'd say, better, maybe. I think in this case, it can only get better, really. Like, it can't get worse than this, unless if all these other remakes just make it worse issues, which then we'll talk about it. So yeah, my advice, wait for the actual third-party cards. Personal recommendations of mine, my 1070 is from Asus. It runs really well. Thermals are great, acceptable. I'm getting full performance. So Asus would be one of them I would recommend. Gigabyte and MSI are also really good as well. EVA or EVGA, they're really good as well. So either one of those four I'd recommend, really. If personally, that's what I would recommend. But we don't know when the third parties are going to start making the cards, because like I said, these are recently released cards, so we don't know how long it will take them to make them. If we expect a new card anytime soon, maybe October, November, December, maybe for the holiday season. But that's my guess. So that's really all I can say on the matter. Like I said, is I can't really go into the same amount of details because I don't have those cards in front of me and can't run extensive tests and present the numbers and everything. But I know a person that did, and they already did. So in the description, I'm going to post a link to the page, the AMD forum, and I'm going to post a link to the Linus Tech Tip videos that you guys should go watch. And my opinion, give it a watch if you're interested, personally, because then you can see exactly how these cards perform when they work the way they're supposed to, how phenomenal for the money they are. But they're also the big downside in what you're getting yourself into, and they actually go over and share more details of how the discussion went with AMD. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for coming back and listening to the show. I really appreciate it. We're already close. I think like maybe 8 more downloads off until over 300 plus downloads. So thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. There is something I have planned that I will talk about maybe on the 50th episode special. I might include like a little tidbit at the end to talk about some little plans I'm working on. So I would recommend that you guys listen to the 50th episode special, because we're redoing the intro, brand new intro, completely re-recorded and everything, new music, and obviously the first episode that includes video. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys come back for Friday's episode, because obviously you guys know what we're talking about. We're talking about the Nintendo Switch Lite, but I hope you guys come back and listen to that. I thank you guys so much for your time. I love you guys to death. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, or not really a weekend. What's wrong with me? Week, really. But thank you guys so much. Peace out, guys. Bye.